Well, thanks so much for jumping on the call today, guys. What we will be running through today is the community management and moderation element of Sprinkler. And we'll be running through kind of the best practice dashboard that we've set up for you guys to run the Captain Morgan Europe community management activity. Just out of interest, I know that some of you have attended other Sprinkler training sessions over the past week or so. Is there anyone on the call who hasn't attended any training sessions yet?
I think we've, well, from a cake cover side of things, I think we've kind of shared it, but I think definitely from our side, this is probably the one we'll use most of all in terms of community management.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, just to give, I know we've kind of done this on some other calls, but just to give a quick summary as to who I am and how I can help you guys. My name's Joe and I work on the managed services team. So what myself and the rest of my team are essentially here for is to really make sure that you as end users, in particular community managers, are fully trained and fully able to utilize the platform to really get the benefits out of Sprinkler when running community management. So what we'll do today is just, as I say, run through the dashboard that we've set up with you guys. Afterwards, I'll send through the link to the dashboards. At the end of the training, if you do have any questions, then we can just run through those as well. So at the moment, we're just on the landing screen when you do log into Sprinkler. The first thing you want to do in order to get to the community management engagement dashboards is just to type in engagement. And then the first thing that you'll see at the top here is engagement dashboards. And then once you click on that, this will automatically open with kind of a default dashboard. And this will be based on alphabetically what's the top dashboard within all of the dashboards that have been shared with you. So you can see that at the moment, the reason this one's popped up straight away is because of the asterisks at the top of internal. Now, to get to all of the dashboards that have been shared with you, all you need to do is just to go to the burger menu at the top left here, click on that, and then all of the dashboards that have been shared with you previously or dashboards that you've set up yourself will be available within here. So you can see, because I'm Sprinkler admin, there's hundreds and hundreds of dashboards across Diageo that have been set up. What we'll do, obviously, you'll have a lot less depending on the brand permissioning that you guys have. So if you only have Captain Morgan, then you'll only have Captain Morgan dashboards which have been shared with you. So the dashboard that we are going to run through today is Captain Morgan Monitoring Europe. So like I say, I'll send the link through to this afterwards, just so that you do have it straight away. What I would always recommend doing as well, and this goes for not just engagement dashboards, but reporting dashboards as well, I would always recommend using the star ability. So if you star that, then essentially what that's doing is, as with a lot of other platforms, that's automatically favorited it. So if you then go to open up a new tab, then it'll instantly show all of your favorites at the top there. So if we go to show, and then we can see Captain Morgan Monitoring Europe, and then that'll just take you straight through. So it's just a bit of a time saver if there are a number of dashboards that you tend to use on the regular as well. One of the other things that we just want to show you at the top here is this in the ellipsis icon at the top right-hand side of the screen. So this is a number of options that you can carry out across the whole of the dashboard. So what you can do is you can add a new dashboard. So that's essentially just create a new dashboard from scratch. You can clone this dashboard, which essentially just creates a copy version of this existing dashboard. It might be the case that you want to create some slight changes to this dashboard, but you don't want to change it to the parent dashboard. A perfect use case for doing that. You might want to edit the format of the dashboard, share the dashboard. What this essentially does is it shares it with the users within Sprinkler, who will then have the ability to go in and access the respective dashboard. So if we just click into that now, you'll see that the user groups that the dashboard in question has been shared with is all of the system admins, all of the Sprinkler team, and anyone who has access to Captain Morgan region Europe. So any of the European Captain Morgan accounts will have access to this dashboard dynamically. You'll also have the ability to lock the dashboard, which essentially means that if you lock it, no one can then go in and accidentally make a change because that dashboard is locked. And you can also see the activity made, so the change log attributed to the respective dashboard and columns as well. And please don't, but you can also delete the dashboard as well. Cool. So as a community manager, obviously, this is going to be your go-to. It'll be your bread and butter, really, when utilizing Sprinklr. So for each brand that you'll have, there will be 2 dashboards that will be shared with you. So this will be your primary one, the Captain Morgan monitoring, and there'll also be a Captain Morgan's publishing dashboard. Essentially, all it is the monitoring dashboard is looking at all of the inbound communication in relation to your brand and region. And the publishing one is looking at all of the outbound activity that you've published from your respective accounts. Cool. So the dashboard, as I said, this is really focused on the inbound communication in relation to each of your accounts. It includes content going directly into your inbox, as well as comments that fans may have made about the brand in question as well. So this particular dashboard has been built out by the managed services team based on kind of a best practice workflow. And this is the base level of dashboard that we tend to recommend to all new teams. And it's a dashboard that we share in order to ensure that kind of teams have consistency from one brand to another. So what we'll do now is we'll just quickly run through what each of these columns is pulling in. So the first column here, we've got looking at Facebook public comments. So this is any comment made by a fan on your Facebook page, which is public. Next, moving on, we've got Facebook paid comments. So what these are comments made on any of your outbound paid posts, any comments that are associated with those. So those comments wouldn't necessarily be appearing on your organic timeline because they're only associated with those paid posts. Next, moving on, we've got the Facebook private inbox. So any direct message going into your Facebook private inbox, those will automatically pull through here. Then we've got the Instagram organic comments. So again, similarly with Facebook, any organic comments made on your Instagram page, whether that's a mention, a reply, etc., any organic engagement will come through to this. And then similarly, oh, I'll just remove this, that's a duplicate there. Any Instagram paid comments, so any comments made off the back of advertising that you've made across Instagram, the comments will automatically filter into this column as well. Then just moving on to Twitter public comments. Again, any public comment made in relation to Twitter will come through to this, and then private messages will funnel into the column next to it. Then just moving on, this will become a little bit clearer as we go through some of the actions on an individual message level. We have an in progress column. And what this essentially means is that if you were editing a message or if you'd started replying to a particular comment, if you don't send that straight away, what that will essentially do is it'll automatically update the message status to draft mode. Once that status has been updated, it will automatically funnel into this column here so that you can really, really easily know exactly what messages have been sent, which ones haven't been sent, and which ones are currently in draft mode and need to be picked up again. Next column is all responses. So all responses that have been sent from any of your owned accounts, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. This also includes any native posts as well. So it doesn't necessarily matter on this column whether the comments have been made through Sprinklr or not. The next column here is the closed column. So in a similar sense to this column here, which is a native column, this is a Sprinklr workflow column. So it's based on exactly the same methodology as the in progress column. once you close a message via a macro, and again, I'll go into this in a bit more detail. Once you've closed out a message, so it might be the case that you've responded to a comment, you're happy with that's the end of the communication, you would close the message, and then that would automatically remove itself from the inbound column over to the closed column again, so you can really easily keep track of what has been responded to and what hasn't been responded to. Then finally, we've got two more sprinkler workflow columns, one of which is hidden messages and one of which is deleted messages. These also work in exactly the same way as the closed and draft methodology. So once you do respond to a message, it may be the case that you actually want to hide that message from your organic page, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or alternatively even delete those messages. We also do have macros which are built out, which essentially does all of these actions for you and will automatically move any hidden or deleted messages across to the respective columns. Again, I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. But does anyone have any questions on what these particular columns are at the moment?
No, I think all those make sense, thanks.
Perfect. So in terms of just going into a bit more detail about the workflow behind the way that these have been set up. At the top here, you'll notice that there's a small sprinkler item, or icon rather, at the top of each of the columns. And what that essentially means is that it's a sprinkler workflow column. And what we essentially try to make sure, to ensure that the community management workflow is as streamlined as possible, is to avoid any duplication across the dashboard, so that only one message will be appearing within any one column at one time. So what that essentially means is that you wouldn't be seeing this message here, so this message from Hannah Sky Sheehan, across any of the other additional columns. Saying that, I'm actually looking at this exactly here, so I might just need to look into the way that this has been built out slightly. But what you essentially should be seeing is that only only organic comments are coming through here and paid comments coming through here as well. So I'll just look into that after this, just to make sure that that's been tagged up correctly. So behind each of these columns, what these are essentially based on is a queue. And what a queue acts as is kind of a form of inbox, essentially. So anytime a message comes through, it will sit in a particular inbox. So just to kind of show you how these columns are configured super briefly, we just go into edit at the top here. What you can see here is that all of these messages are just based on the universal inbox. And what that means is that all of your inbound messages in relation to Captain Morgan accounts will just feed into this particular universal inbox. So the way that one message moves from one particular column to another queue, as I said, what we essentially want to try and do to have the most streamlined methodology for community managers is to make sure that we're only really ever seeing new messages within a column, because you should be closing out any new comment that comes through and then moving them across to either the draft or closed columns. Now, I mentioned macros before, but essentially what macros are automated action triggers, which can be used by a user moving a message from one column across to another column. They can also do a number of other actions like apply a particular tag or assign a message to a particular user. So one particular way, I'll just show you a quick example. So you'll see at the bottom here, there are a number of icons. I'll go through some of these in a bit more detail in a moment, but I just want to quickly go through the macro icon. So if we quick click on macro there, so we've selected this particular message. If we go to macro, so if we're happy and we've responded to that particular message, you've gone through, you said, okay, yeah, happy with that response. What you would then want to make sure that you're doing, again, to ensure that you're only seeing new messages at the top of each of your columns, is to close that message out. So what you would want to do is to go to responded closed. Once you select that, I won't do it so that we don't obviously move this particular message. But once you've clicked responded closed, you'll see that this particular message will automatically move over to the closed column, and it will automatically then shift up. So Arabella's message will then become the next message in the stream. So this is kind of what we really recommend users to do when they are running community management, because it just ensures that it's super easy to keep on top of all of the new messages. So each of these columns are filtered in a way that the newest columns, so the newest comments, are at the top of each of the dashboards as well. So at the moment, just for the purpose of this particular demo, each of these columns are set, I believe, to a particular time period of, once this opens, lifetime. So you can see that in this particular element on the column here that says default date range, this is where you can select the date range to be shown within the column. So usually once we've got community management teams up and running on their dashboards, we usually recommend that they actually have this set to either this week or at the longest this month. Reason being that because they would be utilizing the dashboard to keep on top of all of their inbound communications, they should be moving all of the older messages out and they should be closing them out. Does that all make sense in terms of the kind of methodology behind moving messages from one column and updating the status of each?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, perfect. What you'll also see across each of the individual messages as well is just some top line information about what each of the messages are. So you'll see at the top here that the status is new, which is why it's in the new inbound column. It sits within two queues, including universal inbox, including whether it's paid, the auto import, whether that's a campaign. If it's a comment, you'll see that that's auto import. Whether it's been assigned to a particular user, the sentiment of the message based on the automated sentiment functionality within Sprinklr, and whether that message is engageable, again, based on AI technology, kind of letting you know whether that should or should not be engaged with. Again, it's just a kind of an idea to provide you with a bit more guidance. You'll also see at the top here red crosses. What these essentially show is exactly the same thing. They show whether the particular user in question, so the person who has authored the comment or mention, is currently following the account in question. So we can see here that at the moment, Hannah is not actually following the Captain Morgan's Europe Facebook account. You'll also have noticed that when you double click on a message, so if you wanted to apply an action to the particular message, you'll see that the another window pops open on the right-hand side of things. Again, showing you relatively similar information. It provides kind of a granular breakdown of all of the information in relation to that particular comment. What can also do is provide you with a conversation stream. So you can see here that now this also brings up the original post from the Captain Morgan's account, and then it shows you all of the previous comments in relation to it. So while here on the left-hand side, it just looks like this is just one separate comment. If you open up this second window here, go over to the conversation option, it will actually show you that there are over 1.1 thousand previous comments in relation to this particular post. You can also go over to profile here, which will just provide you with a bit more granular information, if available, on the particular user who has sent the communication. So just going down to a few more of the options at the bottom of in each of the individual messages as they come in. So as I showed you, you can macro, so you can move messages across, you can assign them to someone. You can also assign them via the designated assign button. So if I wanted to assign to, let's have a look, James Cabley, for instance, all of these users are appearing again because I'm Sprinklr admin, so everyone is appearing for me. You'll only be able to see the users in relation to yourselves. If you wanted to reply, then all you would need to do is go on to reply, click on the arrow, and then what that'll do is pop up with another window in which you can enter all of your information about responding to the particular post. So As with all of the publishing across Sprinkler, whether it's in organic publishing, whether it's in engagement dashboards or creative library, ads manager, etc., you'll always see that there are red dots alongside elements that need to be filled in. Otherwise, you won't be able to publish your post. So just going from top to bottom, you'll see that the reply window will ask you to select what type of message would you like to reply. So would you like to just respond to the post? Would you like to comment on the post? Or would you like to send a direct message? So each of these options, again, will obviously vary depending on the responding capabilities for each of the individual platforms. So for instance, Facebook will have slightly different options compared to Facebook. Just below that is where you can enter your reply. So you can just enter your text in there. If you did want to, you can also add additional things like photos, videos, links, etc. What it will also ask you to do is then to assign all of the tagging structure, which is defined at a global Diageo level. So the first thing it will ask you to do is to assign what sort of campaign, excuse me, is this in relation to. So each of the kind of tagging structures will differ slightly from brand to brand. It might be the case that you want to, for campaign, just put community management, for instance. There's lots of options appearing for me, but it might be the case that you just want to select, let's go with cultural moment, Kettle One, for instance. You just want to make sure that you're selecting everything with a red dot. Just moving on, some values like category, brand, and country publishing too will automate based on the particular account in question, so you won't necessarily always need to fill those in. It will also ask you to select product. If there isn't a product, you can select NA. It will also ask you to select whether the message is approved via Diageo Content Hub. You'll always need to make sure that you click yes for this, because if you don't select yes, then there's an auto stop publishing rule built in the background, which will automatically stop your post from being published. So this is just a Diageo compliance-based measure. So just always make sure that whenever you're publishing anything, you always select yes. Just moving on, you'll also have ability to select a particular type of activity. So for instance, again, these are across all of the brands that, that I help to manage. It might be the case that the activity is across food and drinks, so you might want to select that. There might be some other additional optional categories that appear. This option here is for personalization, which was a Captain Morgan campaign, which I think was set up maybe about a year or so ago. But because it doesn't have a red dot, you don't always need to fill in these optional ones here. And then for approval type, just always leave that as not required. The reason being that even if there is an approval type, or approval path rather, which has been defined by your brand, the way that we always do that is to build in a rule in the background based on the account. So whenever you're publishing anything, whether it's within an engagement dashboard, whether it's organic publishing, or whether it's via creative library, just always leave that as not required. Then just below that, you'll have areas where you can leave an approval note as well. So if there was an approval path whereby a brand manager, for instance, needed to check the comments that are going outbound, you can leave a little note in there. And then finally, you can save your post as a draft, post it straight away, or alternatively schedule the time for the post being published on a particular date and time. So just one thing, it's probably been called out in some of the other trainings as well. Tagging at all levels across the platform is super, super important, in particular when it comes to reporting and analytics, because what tags essentially do is help the brand team to understand the performance of specific types of content. So for instance, how much engagement is being generated around a specific product or type of event, or, you know, what were the primary reasons for fans reaching out to a particular brand. So where possible, add as much detail in the tagging structure as possible, because it will just really, really help the brand team in terms of deriving really granular and insightful information. So you'll also have seen that there are a number of tags available when you are going through to reply. If there are any other additional tags that you think would be useful when you're running community management or when you're publishing posts through Creative Library, all you need to do is just to reach out to the managed services team. So I'm sure that you guys have probably seen the Diageo help form. If not, I'll quickly show you it afterwards so I can send the link across. But we have an online help form in which all users can reach out to the managed services team with any help in relation to Sprinkler. So it might be the case that you want to add a new column to your dashboard. It might be the case that you want to add a new tag or a campaign, for instance. That's exactly what we as managed services are here for, to help you guys. So that's pretty much it, to be honest, in terms of the community management. As I say, it's fairly straightforward once you kind of get to have a little play around with it. The basic level of the workflow really is just to make sure that we're continuing to move the messages from one column to the next. So that regardless of whether it's yourself or someone else from your community management team, if they come in, they're only seeing new messages which have not been actioned upon and have not been closed out at the top of each of their columns. So just before we do move on to the publishing dashboard, there's also a few more options at an individual message level as well. So if you hover across the ellipsis icon at the bottom of each of the messages, you can also like the message individually, you can hide the message, delete, open the details, which will pop open the additional window on the right hand side as we went through earlier, set particular reminders, change the sentiment, etc., etc. So does anyone, before we move on to the publishing dashboard quickly, does anyone have any questions on the monitoring dashboard, the way it's been set up, the way you move messages around, or the methodology behind it at all?
No, not at all for me, I don't think.
Awesome, cool. So what we will then just move on to is, as I said, the monitoring dashboard is for looking at all of your inbound communication. The publishing dashboard, which has also been shared with you, is for looking at all of your outbound activity. So I won't spend too much time on here. It's fairly self-explanatory, but as I said, this is looking at all of the outbound activity from each of the respective accounts. So first of all, we've got outstanding drafts, which have been stored as draft status within Sprinkler. All of the scheduled accounts, or messages rather, all of your sent messages, which includes all of the channels and accounts across the dashboards, all of your sent Facebook messages, your sent dark Facebook messages, and your sent dark Instagram messages. So you'll see that some of these columns actually have messages from quite a long time ago. This is just because we did obviously have previous agencies working on these particular accounts across Sprinkler. As with all of the other columns, you can go in and edit each of these so that you can set a specific time period for these. So if you wanted to only take a look at activity from 2020, you can go in and update the columns based on your preferences. So that's about it, really. As I say, it's fairly simple in terms of keeping on top of your messages within community management, going through, responding, actioning each of the messages. These are, as I say, these are the kind of standardized best practice dashboards that we always share with users. This isn't to say that these are the final dashboards at all. I know that every single brand team, every single market has slightly different nuanced processes in terms of the way that they run community management. For instance, it might be the case that you have multiple users working across one dashboard. So we can certainly help to build out additional columns or workflows in order to accommodate those. It also might be the case that at particular times, like now, for instance, I guess taking COVID-19 as an example, it might be the case that as a brand, that's a real priority for running community management. If that's the case, again, just reach out to managed services team, and we're here to support you with making sure that your community management dashboard is as refined as possible. So again, just kind of using the COVID-19 as an example, what we can do is build out a new column, honing in on any mention of across all of your Captain Morgan accounts that mentions COVID-19 or coronavirus, etc., so that you can make sure that you're prioritizing those messages as soon as you log on in the morning. Same goes for any particular campaign or list of influencers, for instance, anything like that. So just let us know anything that is of particular importance or prominence to you guys, and we can follow up and build that in.
Brilliant.
So does anyone have any questions at all about the process? I know there was a lot of me just talking there. Does anyone have any questions at all at the top of mind?
No, I think probably we'll kind of jump in, have a play with it, and then if we've got any questions around tagging or anything we need tweaked, we'll probably just be in touch with you, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Oh.
Yeah, all looks good. It was really helpful. Thank you for running us through that, Joe. And also having it recorded is always useful, because I find, the best way to do things is just get hands-on with it, and then you can see how it kind of, really works.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I would recommend. Just as soon as you do get a chance, just go in, take a look through. Like I say, if you do want me to go in and update any of the columns to a more recent date range, just let me know. I can do that. I'd only set these to lifetime period just for the purpose of this demo. So just let me know any preferences in terms of the dashboards, Holly, and I can just accommodate those.
Will do. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Awesome. Well, if no one has any other questions at all, we'll leave that there for the moment. Just one more thing. I know I mentioned about the managed services help form. Have you guys all seen that at all, or would that be useful for me to quickly show you as well?
Yeah, it might be worth sharing. I don't know. It doesn't ring a bell with me.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think.
So essentially what it is, in my follow-up email, I'll send over a link to it. What it essentially is it's just a super simple Google document form for any end user to reach out to the managed services team to get support from us. So all it is just a document here. I'll send over the link, as I say, and it will just ask you for some basic information around the sort of request or question that you have. So all it'll ask you to do, first of all, is just to put your information in, and then it will ask you what sort of question or what sort of element within Sprinkler is your request in association to. So is it across owned data, so in terms of organic publishing, reporting, or community management? Is it across listening or competitor influencer monitoring, so benchmarking, social listening? Is it to request a new tag or campaign, or is it in relation to a paid question? So, setting up a new campaign or new audience, for instance. Once you do go through to each one of these, then there'll be a series of other options. So it might be the case for, getting general help, removing a particular user, setting up a listening topic, whether your password or account has been locked, etc. It will point you in the direction of the relevant area that you want to go to. If we just quickly take a step back and go to request new campaign tag, for instance, then it will just ask you for what the new campaign is. So whether it's a new campaign tag or an other type of tag. So it might be in relation to activity or product. If you then click through, then it will just provide you with a free text field just to provide a bit more clarification around that as well. So this is all you need to do. If there's ever a request around new dashboards, updates, tags, or just a question in general, just come out to this document, and then this will be picked up by either myself or someone else from the managed services team.
Amazing. That's really helpful.
That's really helpful. I did just have a question for you. Thank you for taking us through that. I think definitely from my perspective, it's probably something that the agencies will find more useful than myself, as I'm not going to be doing community management on a daily basis. However, I know it kind of, through all of the tagging that's set up, that obviously affects the kind of reporting that we can get from that, or how we can go in and do some listening, or find different reports from a brand perspective. So just in context of that, I know Ipalibo sent a note to you to schedule a bit of a section to go over leveraging listening and research capabilities. Were you planning on doing that, or has that already been scheduled? I'm just wondering if I should jump on that.
Yeah, so we were actually going to do that today, but we've now moved that to tomorrow at, I think it's 3:30. Let me just check my calendar quickly. Yeah, 3:30 tomorrow. I don't know whether, does that time work for you? If not, we can always move it to the time that works for you, Anita.
No, that time works great. So I'd love if you could just extend that to me, and I'll jump onto that call as well, and whoever else we want to. But that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Awesome, cool. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll leave that there then, I guess. Like I say, if there is anything else that does come to mind, or if you have any questions about the dashboards, just ping me, and then we can always jump on another call.
Thanks, Jo.
Thank
No
you
problem.
so much,
Cheers.
Jo.
Have a lovely
Thank
rest of the
you.
week. I don't speak to you beforehand.
Thanks.
And
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, bye.